Hello. The story I'm going to share with you is called The Ancient Mariner. So make sure you're sitting comfortably and let's begin. I stared at the old man. Who was he? I'd never seen him before, I was sure of it. I'd have remembered if I had. He had a long grey beard and scruffy clothes, but his eyes were the strangest thing about him. Once you'd seen them, you wouldn't forget them in a hurry, no matter how much you wanted to. They glittered as they stared at me with a piercing, merciless gaze, and I found that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't look away. I suppose my friends thought I knew him. Anyway, they were impatient to get to the wedding. We were nearly there. We could hear the music and the voices, and they carried on without me. Thanks a lot, I thought. Then the old man spoke. There was a ship, he began. Suddenly I felt angry. I wanted to go to the wedding and I didn't want anything to do with him. Whatever his problem was, it was nothing to do with me. I told him to get out of the way, but he placed a hand on my chest and he said it again. There was a ship. And as if in a dream, I found myself sitting on a nearby stone. It seemed I'd no choice but to listen, as he went on to tell me his story, the story of the Ancient Mariner. Chapter 1. There was a ship. I was one of the crew. We were setting off to explore the seas around the South Pole. It was going to be a great adventure. All our friends and relatives came to see us off, and they waved as we left the harbour. As we sailed south, the sun climbed higher and the sky was a perfect blue. But as we went on, the weather began to change. Black clouds raced across the sky and a strong wind got up. It lashed the waves till they were as high as the ship, and we had to cling onto the masts or whatever we could so we wouldn't be washed overboard. We were driven before the storm like a twig caught by a river in a flood. We were sure the ship would break up and sink, but at long last the gale died down. Now, however, we had a new problem. It grew cold, bitterly, fiercely cold. The ship drifted through mist and snow. Our breath came out in clouds, and our eyebrows and beards were crusted with ice. We put on all the clothes we had, and they still weren't enough. We didn't see a single living thing, neither in the sea nor in the air. It was beautiful though, no denying that. Massive icebergs drifted past, great cliffs and mountains of ice. They shone with blue and green fire, but of course it was a cold fire that wouldn't warm us. Then one day I looked over the side and noticed that something new was happening. Patches of ice were floating on the surface. Surely the sea itself couldn't freeze. At first they were quite small, but then they grew bigger and bigger and bigger. All of us gathered at the railing and watched. We talked about what we were seeing, but gradually we fell silent. I could see in all the other sailors' faces that they were thinking the same thing as I was. As the temperature dropped, the pieces of ice were joining together like a jigsaw. Soon they'd form one vast sheet. With no wind to fill the sails, the ship couldn't turn back. We wouldn't be able to move. The ship would be seized fast, and what would happen to us then? It went on for days. At first the ice was quite a thin layer, but it grew thicker and thicker and thicker. Then the sounds began, the great slabs of ice grinding against each other. The ice creaked and howled and groaned. It sounded like a living being, a creature in pain. But it wasn't in as much pain as we were. Our supplies were getting low. Our drinking water froze. We had frostbite in our fingers and toes. Then one man said what we were all thinking. If the ice keeps getting thicker, in the end, it'll crush the ship. We stared at each other in dread. How could we escape? What could we do? The answer seemed to be nothing. We were helpless. And then after several terrible days of being caught in the grip of the ice, I happened to look up and saw a tiny dot in the sky. It came closer. It was a bird. In this frozen wilderness, something was alive. It circled above the ship on huge wings, and we all gazed at it, thrilled. It was an albatross. It dipped down as if to take a closer look at us, and someone had the bright idea of getting some biscuit to lure it closer. The biscuit was stale, but the bird didn't mind. It seemed to think it was a great treat. After that, it kept close to us and came at our call. Well, it was as if this beautiful bird had brought us luck. A couple of days after we first saw it, there was a cracking sound beneath the ship, and the ice sheet split. A south wind blew up and filled our sails, and carefully we nosed our way out through the channels that had appeared in the ice. It looked as though, after all, thanks to the albatross, we were going to escape. And so, what made me do it? How can I explain it? Was there some evil inside me? Was I just stupid? Had I forgotten that we owed all our luck to the bird? I don't know. All I know is that in a single, terrible, stupid moment, I raised my crossbow and I shot the albatross. I'll see you next time for chapter 2.